Hello. Okay, today hopefully I will give you a little bit of a less shaky video because I'm sitting down and just not moving around so much. So what I want to talk to you about today is a little idea, and it might be a podcast in the future, but I've come up with 3 indicators for, maybe we could put it as financial resilience, and I'm really curious to see how you would do on these and what you think of these, and then at the end I'll tell you my numbers. So the number one thing that I want to ask you, the first of the third is, if you lost your job today or your business, how many days could you spend without working, just living on your reserves, if you were getting no income? This is a pretty familiar question for people in the financial independence community, but it's a very interesting one. I guess that's why it's so popular. So how many days? Think about that. That's number one. Number two, if all of your possessions, your personal belongings, I'm including everything here that you use as part of your personal consumption. So probably the biggest asset for some of you will be your house or your car. Those, unless you have an associated revenue stream with them, take those as a personal possession. So if all of your personal possessions disappeared today and you had to buy everything again, how many times could you do that with your financial reserves? Or what percentage of it could you raise, could you buy immediately with your current financial reserves? And when I say financial reserves, I'm going to include all investments that can be turned into money pretty quickly. So if I don't know, give you an example, stocks can be sold pretty easily. Uh, you could even include houses and things like that, real estate. I mean, that doesn't sell quickly, but it's still something you will find a seller for. So if you take all of your investments, how many times could you buy back all of your items of personal consumption? And finally, for the third one, so the second one could be called kind of a liquidity assessment, something like that. It's a term from accountancy, and there are more rigorous definitions there. But anyway, I'll call it that for now. And number 3 is, again, imagine that all of your personal possessions, as defined previously, would disappear. How many work days would it take you to earn the income to buy everything back, assuming that you don't have any other expense, everything's covered, you're just getting the money to buy the stuff back? And I think that I'm actually curious of your answers. I mean, I understand that you might not want to share them publicly, but if you do, I'd like to see it, or if you have a pseudonym or something, I'd be very interested. And I think my idea with these is that these 3 combined are a good indicator of financial resilience. The way I see it is that all the items that you own for personal consumption are kind of, I'd put it as work, effort, time, your work, your effort, your time, frozen. Okay, there's the train again. I'm not gonna show it this time. I'll just wait a sec. Alright, so that is, options are kind of frozen in time. So that means that it's a chunk of your past, and there's a risk that that's what you'll have to replace in the future. So it's both kind of something from your history and also a risk factor for the future. So, given my unique situation, I'm okay on the first one, and I'm really good on the second two. So, um, I have about 5 months worth of savings and very limited kind of passive income streams. So, that's about it. It's not great in financial independence circles, but on average, that's pretty good. And I'm going to tell you of this idea. I got it from Andy Norris at liberate.life. He's a fellow Exetarian, I guess. And I know him in real life. And he has this idea of Pareto financial independence. So you don't have to go all the way to completely living off of passive income or things like that to get many of the benefits that you would associate with that. So let's say for 20% of the effort or the reserves or whatever, you can get 80% of the benefits. And I think something like a 6 months reserve is a pretty good thing. It gets you pretty far and it gets you many of the benefits. So had I not had these reserves, what you see right now and kind of my leap that I talked about in previous videos would not have been possible. And that alone is an immense boost. Now, if I'm to go deeper in the subject, there are kind of other ways in which I could keep going, and you could keep going as well. In order of preference, in order of how I would, when I would like to use them. I wouldn't like to use them, but if I have to, my plan B. So there are adjustments to my lifestyle that I could still do. I have a low budget, but the room that you saw in the last video is just that way. That's why I'm pointing there. So that little room is actually about 70 to 80% of my budget, depending on the month. So when I saw that, I kind of adjusted my budget right before I made this leap. And when I saw this number, I said, there's room for growth here. This is not ideal. So there are more creative alternative housing ideas out there that I might get into the futures. But yeah, I could cut down. I could keep going for longer than 5 months. I wouldn't want to necessarily. Maybe I'll have to see it. But yeah, that's plan B. Then I have my social network, my friends, who would back me up, who would give me food and shelter. So that's something. Then there are the private voluntary charity systems present here in England that I could use if I'm in need. And finally, there's government benefits that I could take if I were in need. Now these are in order of preference, so I would not be very happy to take benefits, but it's there as an option, as a last resort option. So that's the first one. The second one, my total value of my possessions, if I had to buy them again, is a little bit under my monthly budget. So I would say I could buy the stuff that I own if I lost everything about 6 or 7 times. Now this is again a very unique situation where I'm young, I'm single, I don't have a house, I don't have a car, things like that. So that drastically reduces how much in reserve I have to have. So that's nice. I'm not saying that if you own a personal house, that's necessarily a bad thing because it reduces this ratio. See my housing expenses, but it's something to keep in mind. And of course, there are 2 ways of doing it, of increasing this ratio. And one is to reduce what you own, and the second, of course, is to increase your income. And on the third one, I think it would take me about 10 working days if I work just any job, like a minimum wage job, to buy back everything that I have. And if I do something more valuable, like coaching or something like that, it would probably be 2 or 3 days. So those are my numbers. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Also subscribe. I'm gonna keep this coming. Should unless something happens, these are gonna keep coming. So feel free to subscribe. Also check out my podcast at valiantgrowth.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.